The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, heroes in a half shell, and for a brief but glorious moment in the late 1980s and early 90s, arguably the biggest multimedia franchise on the planet. With a slice of pizza in one hand and a katana in the other, these reptilian rapscallions found their way into everything: cartoons, toys, lunchboxes, bedsheets, and of course, video games. In 1989, the Nintendo Entertainment System played host to the very first TMNT game you could experience at home, a curious hybrid of side-scrolling action and overhead exploration. It was flawed certainly, but it dared to be original. Due to its punishing difficulty and the fact that it bore little resemblance to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade cabinet that released the same year, the game split opinion. Some adored its ambition, others however were left cold, longing instead for a traditional beat-em-up they could enjoy from the comfort of their own sofa. And so, the following year, Konami delivered a sequel crafted to cash in on the arcade craze, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game. It satisfied the masses, but in doing so, stripped away nearly everything that made the first game so unique and intriguing. So today, my friends, allow me to deliver a spicy slice of gaming blasphemy. My hot take on why, given the choice, I'd rather revisit the original NES Turtles title than its so-called superior follow-up. Hello ladies and gentlemen, Big Daddy Top Hat here. Let us dive into the world of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, and examine why, in 2025, this is a sequel best left in the sewer. Yeah! We really have been treated to some of the best beat-em-ups ever recently, but what's more mental is you can now enjoy some of these games for next to nothing. Use my links to get Shredder's Revenge for under $15, Streets of Rage 4 for under $10, and one of my favourite brawlers ever, Double Dragon Gaiden, for less than $5. I have huge discounts on thousands of games via the pinned comment. Each purchase supports the channel, and you can get bargains simultaneously. Happy shopping, and hope you enjoy the video. The original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game, released by Konami in 1989, remains one of the most iconic beat-em-ups of its era. It landed at exactly the right moment, right as Turtle Mania was sweeping across the globe, and gave fans the fantasy they'd always dreamed of, stepping into the shells of Leonardo, Donatello, Michelangelo, and Rembrandt, battling their way through hordes of foot soldiers, mutants, and machines to save April O'Neil and Master Splinter. For many, it wasn't just a game, it was a playable cartoon bursting with vibrant colours, expressive character sprites, and faithful animations that perfectly captured the energy and humour of a TV show. What really made the game so beloved was its frantic 4-player co-op gameplay, in an era when most arcade cabinets were still offering solo or 2-player experiences. The chance to team up with 3 mates and tackle waves of enemies together was thrilling. Each turtle had their own fighting style, weapon reach, and subtle differences in speed, which added a slight tactical element to the chaos. The controls were simple and intuitive: jump, attack, and a special move, but the sheer volume of enemies on screen and the smooth scrolling action kept players engaged and pumping coins from start to finish. I'm not surprised people loved this title so much, as beyond the mechanics there was just something joyful about the game's tone. It embraced the campy Saturday morning cartoon feel without being patronising or dull. Levels were diverse and well paced, the soundtrack was catchy and energetic, and the boss fights against the likes of Bebop, Rocksteady, and Shredder himself were memorable and often genuinely challenging. It was a pure distillation of what made the Ninja Turtles popular in the first place: teamwork, attitude, and relentless action. Even today, the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade game is remembered fondly not just as a great licensed title, but as one of the best beat-em-ups of the golden age of arcades. When talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game on the NES, let's begin with the most obvious flaw. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 is repetitive, mind-numbingly so. It's essentially a straight line from left to right, mashing the B button as wave after wave of palette-swapped foot soldiers waltz in for their scheduled thrashing. No puzzles, no exploration, no decisions, just the same basic enemies reappearing in different colours and with slightly altered attacks, stretching out what should have been a brisk thrill ride into a sluggish slog. Now, to be clear, yes, this is a port of the original arcade game, but something crucial was lost in translation. the NES simply didn't have the horsepower to match the arcade game's original speed, sound and spectacle. Gone are the crisp animations, the layered backdrops bustling with detail, and the four-player mayhem that made the arcade cabinet so unforgettable. What felt like thrilling chaos in the arcade, loud, bright and social, becomes a much quieter, lonelier grind on the NES. You're still fighting the same enemies in the same order, but without the visual flair, dynamic soundscape, or explosive pace to distract you. The repetition is suddenly front and centre. It doesn't feel like a team effort anymore, it feels like a chore. Sure, two-player action is better than none, but let's not forget there were 4 Ninja Turtles, and being able to team up with all of them at the same time is part of what made the original arcade game so spectacular. Compared to the first NES Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles game, often mocked for its difficulty, yes, but at least structurally it's ambitious. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 feels almost insultingly stripped back. The original game included an overworld map, sewer navigation, underwater bomb defusal segments, and distinct turtle stats that actually made each brother feel different in battle. Donatello's long reach genuinely changed how you approach certain enemies. In Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, pick whoever, they're essentially cosmetic swaps. It's a classic arcade style brawler, but robbed of the arcade's most important feature: atmosphere. On the NES, stripped of its context, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 exposes the hollowness at its core. A flashy crowd pleaser, perhaps, but not one built to last once the novelty fades. Stripped of its arcade gloss, the arcade game on the NES starts to resemble your typical licensed game of the late 80s and early 90s. A shallow, repetitive, cash-in banking on brand recognition rather than delivering a truly memorable experience. There is little reason to go back and revisit it today, as it plays things painfully safe, offering no real innovation or depth, just endless enemy waves and the hope that slapping the Ninja Turtles logo on the box would be enough to make fans overlook its bland design. In this light, it fits neatly alongside the countless other licensed titles of the era. Visually faithful, sure, but ultimately disposable. While this game is certainly an admirable attempt to bring that arcade magic into our humble living rooms, it quickly becomes obvious that the 8-bit toaster just wasn't up to the task. What we've ended up with was a stripped back, clunky and painfully compromised imitation. Animations were drastically slashed, attacks that were once fluid became stiff, robotic affairs. When playing the game, the turtles look more like they're flailing pool noodles than swinging deadly weapons. What's worse is that frame rates dip into single digits during the more chaotic segments, and the combat, which feels satisfying and impactful in the real arcade game, feels more like guesswork in this iteration. For those trying this out for the first time today, when controlling the turtles, you'll be asking yourself, will your hit land? Will it clip through the enemy? Only the NES knows, and it isn't telling you. Then there's the performance. Good lord! The NES already struggled with rendering too many sprites on screen, but when you added a second player into the mix, you'd better be prepared for a slideshow. Flickering sprites, screen tearing, and input lag galore. What's meant to be a glorious couch co-op ends up looking like the cartridge is being powered by a potato wearing a blindfold. It doesn't just chug, it's practically coughing up smoke. And for those expecting the arcade's crisp, booming soundtrack, the NES sound chip does its best, bless its little silicon heart, but it's a bit like trying to recreate a rock concert using a kazoo and a broken music box. The melodies are technically there, but the energy and punch are long gone. So yes, while the arcade version was a visual and auditory feast, the NES version is more of a lukewarm leftover, reheated, rubbery, and noticeably uncooked. Yes, defenders will inevitably chime in, but the NES version had extra levels. And they're right, it did. 2 of them, in fact. Added specifically to pad out the home release and offer something fresh for returning arcade fans. But let's not pretend these additions elevate the experience in any meaningful way. These bonus stages are not bold reinventions or creative detours. They're more of the same conveyor belts, more predictable enemy waves, and more hollow boss fights that feel like lightly reskinned echoes of earlier encounters. It's the gaming equivalent of slapping a piece of limp lettuce onto a sandwich made of styrofoam and proudly declaring it's gourmet. Sure, it's technically different, but does it improve the flavour? Not even remotely. A longer, bland experience is still, well, a bland experience. More levels don't solve the core issue, that the gameplay loop wears thin within minutes, and padding it out just makes the tedium more obvious. Let's not kid ourselves, there is literally no reason to play this game anymore, especially now we have the arcade version at our fingertips. For this reason, I'd much rather power up the NES original. That earlier title, for all its faults, had a distinct identity. It wasn't afraid to throw players into the deep end with giant fire monsters, creepy underground lairs, and bosses that looked like they'd crawled out of a fever dream. It felt unpredictable, almost experimental, like someone had been given the Turtles license and a free pass to go absolutely mad with it. By contrast, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 plays it painfully straight. It ditches the weird and wonderful in favour of sterile. Sure, you could argue it's more on brand with a TV show, clean, colourful and recognisable, but in doing so it trades away all of its personality for a thin coat of polish. It's safer, brighter, more marketable, but infinitely more boring. Where the first game was rough around the edges but brimming with bizarre energy. In my opinion, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is a textbook example of playing it safe, and in the process, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 feels like it was built in a boardroom, predictable to the point of lifelessness, and utterly incapable of surprising you. I completely understand why Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, the arcade game, would have been a favourite for kids back in the day. It had the turtles, it looked and sounded close enough to the cartoon, and it let you and a mate beat up bad guys for hours on end. What more could a young fan ask for? At the time, just having a recognisable franchise faithfully recreated on a home console was enough to blow minds. But viewed through an adult lens, or even compared to its contemporaries, it becomes clear that nostalgia is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Beneath the flashy license is a game that's mechanically shallow, relentlessly repetitive, and afraid to take any risks. The kind of title you remember fondly, but struggle to enjoy once the rose-tinted glasses come off. Due to this, the original NES Turtles game has arguably aged better. Not because it was more polished or easier to play, it absolutely wasn't, but because it had ambition. It dared to do something different. It wasn't just a side-scrolling brawler, it was a weird, sprawling hybrid of action, platforming, exploration, and brutal challenge. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, in contrast, is smooth and inoffensive, but ultimately forgettable. You can finish it, put the controller down, and struggle to recall a single standout moment. Meanwhile, everyone remembers the damn level from the first game, for better or worse. It's the difference between a game that tried to be unique and one that simply aimed to replicate a proven formula. One aged into a relic worth revisiting, the other became background noise in the annals of NES history. Don't forget you can use my links to get Shredder's Revenge for under $15, Streets of Rage 4 for under $10, and one of my favourite brawlers ever, Double Dragon Gaiden, for less than $5. I have huge discounts on thousands of games via the pinned comment. Each purchase supports the channel and you get bargains simultaneously. Happy shopping and cheerio!